Morning. I'm sure that everybody's up in their own garages, breathlessly waiting for their exercise to start. I know I was. When you wake up in the morning, what are you thinking of? I'm thinking of timing. You know. Whoa. All right. So, timing. If you're going to engage in sport or music or life, learning a particular timing of thing is important. And the reason is that most of our life kind of centers around that, from the very first sounds that we hear when we're in the womb to the sounds that we hear around us in the din of life. Timing is in anything that we interact with, that then if you can engage in that thing in a way that can affect it, that whole timing thing becomes interesting. And so in music and in martial arts training, it's really important. So I learned a long time ago a few musical rules that I applied to places like the soccer field. It's like how to juke people out, and, a lot of these tricks that you would pull on people where you do one thing one way over and over and over, and it's like your one move. So you go out there and everyone knows you're about to pull this one move. And for me, it was just sort of sprint past you. I didn't have very many moves early in life. But they'd think for a moment that you're about to throw that move if they were close to you, and then they'd immediately do what was known to stop that move. Well, once you caught on to that, you just faked that you were going to do that move and do something else. And that's how you interrupt timing. So, but you have to do that in some sort of interaction with the person that you're working with. So in fighting, it's interesting because a lot of fighters, they listen to music when they play, when they train. There's any number of different reasons why you would or wouldn't do that. I don't know. I listen to music when I train. So, but if you listen to music, you'll hear where timing is interesting, because as long as you stay within those guidelines that everybody else can recognize, everybody else can follow you. So the person that used to encourage me to study drums would say, it's not about getting out of the beat, it's about falling back into the beat. And then he would show me some of the best players that deliberately went off time and then came back. Bam! It was genius to see him do it. So how that relates to fighting? Well, if you go off timing in a band that they don't expect, and then you just, as a drummer, continue on your merry little way, your bandmates are going to become confused. They're going to get angry. They're going to stop playing. Oh my God, they're going to turn you into some, well, anyway, got a little crazy there. Oh. But if you're a fighter and you upset a guy's time and he becomes confused, his head starts to move like this thing. So it kind of works like this. You're walking in, you're doing the dance. The guy's like, oh yeah, this guy's known for his hook, and I'm just gonna wait for him. Oh my God, was that, what happened? See that head move? So as he was sorting all that out in his head, when you just do something like that, but it's sudden. So 1, 1, 2, 3, kind of stuff. So what'll happen is he's used to 1, 1, 2. So from the defensive side, he'll go bam, boom, and then he'll open up in his own thing. Tuck in, take a couple, and he'll light you up. Or he'll tuck in and throw at the same time. Those are the things you got to deal with. So as you do that, knowing he's about to do that, and he throws that, and you duck, 1, 2, and he gets his head out of the way, like this thing did, and you miss, it's embarrassing. Especially when it's on live TV, or live Facebook. I guess that's not TV, is it? Shows you how old I am. Anyway, timing is important. So when you're training timing, don't get locked into doing the same thing every time. That kind of stuff. Don't be repetitive like that. So if you're going to do like some static movements where you're not going to move around, but you're going to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. So guy gets used to that from his own practice. You understand that? Whatever he does in his rhythm is what he's going to expect you to do. It's human nature. But you want to mess with that. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Variations of the same form. Okay? Off. That. See, I don't have to even move. I can just stand here and go 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay. And then the hook. The hook gets you out. Because remember, dude's gonna tuck in and throw. Or he's gonna tuck in and throw. You gotta do something. So you're gonna come in and you're gonna go 1, 2. Because that left is gonna cover anything he's throwing, and it's gonna slip into this pocket here if you're fast. Which you're gonna hope to be, because your timing is going to be different than his timing. And because you train speed, and you know his timing is slow, you can easily take advantage of it. Plus, I don't know about you, but this dude's just kind of lame. Doesn't fight back at all. I don't know. Must be the fact that he's just a dumb soccer ball. Anyway. I digress. All right. So, if you're a drummer, you got to work with a metronome, and you have to understand how to work both within and then the outside of that confines. As a fighter, doing so gets you in and out of trouble. Being predictable is what gets you in trouble. So if you do the same foot movements, or the same head movements, or the same hand movements every single time, your opponents are going to catch on to that if they're smart. And you're going to go nighty-nights pretty quick. So you have to learn how to improvise in a way that completely becomes unpredictable. It never makes sense to try to follow this person's individual movements, because they're just never the same way twice, because you're not following any particular pattern. But what you're doing is you're looking for areas where The second your opponent begins to react to one of them, they will do so again. So you have to become very sensitive to where their timing becomes interrupted. You're not looking for that big gaping hole to open up and you're like, BAM! Gotcha! That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for subtle changes in footwork. Changes in his breath. Flush in his face. Fear. Anxiety. Overconfidence. Things that you can detect long before you can detect all the other stuff. Subtle things. Subtle changes. Timing is subtle. When you learn to punch, all of your movements have to still be coordinated with your body. And there are some really solid reasons for this. So first, the further you get out away from your body, the more leverage is exerted on the shoulder, which is a very weak joint and subject to injury. So if I swing and make contact with somebody, I'm likely to become injured. If this person has given all they've got at stopping me. Likely. Unless I'm a trained fighter, then maybe not. But it's a very common thing to injure one's shoulders in sports where you're doing things where you're extending your arm. So those are super common things. And you can just do your own homework to check that. So if you're going to remain injury-free, you have to have good mechanics. So when you punch, if you're going to go with a really long-range punch, it's okay to wing it. You don't have to be perfect. And so many people are, you can't do it this way, you can't do it that way. I don't know. I think you can just be like, ah, bam! And if the guy stands there and you hit him hard enough and that fist is moving fast enough, I think the guy's going to react. Now here's the difference. If I do it to a dude who's really massive, and I'm just like, what dang, as hard as I can with a crappy punch like that, dude's probably going to be like, hey, you want to get on a ladder and maybe try that again? You know, I mean, get a better angle at it or something? You know, it's really not going to have that much of an effect on it. So when you punch with any, like, aggressive anger, the further away you get from your body, if it's taken arc, the slower it will become. And there are a number of different reasons for this. But first and foremost, because now you've extended the joint beyond its safe working angle that on a contractile level, your body knows is wrong and starts shutting you down. You don't know it, but your body does. And because that's the area you'll become injured. So do your homework on that one too. You know, if you follow me on Facebook, and I posted a whole bunch of articles on how the muscles work with regards to attainment of speed. Anyway, so the same thing applies with attainment of strength, injuries, you know, because they're kind of all, those things are all interconnected. You can't have pure, raw, massive speed without having strength associated with it. Weak men don't typically win the 100 meters at the Olympics. Underfed, starved, aging human beings don't typically go to the Olympics. So now, that being said, the guys that win the marathon look pretty underfed compared to the guys that win the 100 meters. But when you look at those human beings on their metabolic levels, you're dealing with superior humans. So they follow rules, though, of body type. They just are who they are. So when you're working around who you are, one of the things that you have to do is get your individual leverage. So to stay in the most powerful range, you want to keep a relative angle you don't want to do the rock on the end of the rope thing. This is what's going to injure your elbow and both your shoulder. So we would have been taught rock on the end of the rope in traditional martial arts as a way of relaxing the shoulder to get as much of that out of your hand as you can towards the target, which you'd use a lot in ridge hand techniques, which I kind of used in sparring, and they do in fact work. So the ridge hand technique is, you know, again, the ridge hand where you're striking. So an opponent moves in for any reason and you just move off angle and strike. But it feels like a powerful motion, and you get hit by that, it's gonna hurt you. But in reality, just swinging my arm like that feels scary. And making contact with a heavy bag 20 times in a row, well, I mean, you better be prepared for icing it up. So, but if I learned to keep a slight bend, now the forces that are exerted at the elbow are lessened, because instead of it hyperextending at the point of impact, it's driving into the joint. It's being supported then by, at the point of impact, sudden contraction. I'm making this base powerful. So when I swing, I extend as far forward as I can with this hook, but I don't straighten the arm, ever. So you got to just understand where that is. You have to learn where your distance is for that. And then when you do, you see the hook I'm using now, you'll get really powerful with a hook that when you move into it, it makes your opponent think that they're going to want to hit you in the chin, because it totally exposes it. Again, the Musashi kick. So as you lean back to avoid whatever they're throwing, you hook, or you jab, or you drill, wherever you're trying to hit in that moment. So here we're talking about the hook. So as I move, that's what I'm doing. So whang. You have to do the whang thing, otherwise it doesn't work. Remember that. When you're sparring, it's hard to go whang with that mouthpiece in, so they, do something else. And I don't care if it makes you look ridiculous. Okay? Because you're the one that's looking ridiculous. Not me. All right. Anyway. I know. I look pretty ridiculous. I know what you're thinking. Timing applies to kicking as well. Speed of the hands, speed of the feet. Speed of the eyes. So, when you're looking at in formation on the fly, and that's a fist coming at you, you have to decide what to do next. That's hard. So it requires that you have a lot of working memory so that you can slow everything down and sort things out on the fly and then come up with the correct resolution, otherwise you're going to lose a part of your phase. So timing is really important, along with just honest, good, fashioned technique. So when you avoid something, you move your head out of the way, you punch, you're leaning out of the way and punching. So you have to first understand that the power of that comes from the hip. So if I attack as I'm moving back, again, you can criticize me on whatever fist you want to use. You use yours, I'll use mine. We'll have to slow the tape down in our fight, because we'll both have broken hands if I'm doing this without gloves on. So, I'm still going to do it. Anyway, so when you lean back, you come forward to get that chin, and you're hoping that they throw that. So It's that motion there. That's kind of what you're doing. But as you do that, you do that. Or you go like that. Any one of those movements will connect with your opponent at a time that's, if you're solid, you're going to connect with them solidly. And I mean, if you miss, you miss. But if you connect, oh man, it makes a great sound. Anyway. Kicking. When you kick, you're kind of doing the same thing with timing. So you're trying to get their hands up. But as their hands start to rise, you have to figure out when to strike and where to strike and what your goal is. It's just not to strike anything. It shouldn't be anything. You should be like a sharpshooter in this. So I always talk about the liver, but you know, in fighting, I'm looking for the inside knees. And I'm not talking about ring fighting. I'm just talking about good old-fashioned fighting. Sparring, same thing, right? Whatever, MMA, boxing, fencing, I don't know, man. Like whatever fighting you're doing. So these areas, I'm going to kick, you know, a lot in the hips to move you and push you back. I'm going to kick that lower abdominal and pubis bone to cause so much flipping pain in your body that tomorrow you'll remember my name when you're urinating. So I'm going to kick you really hard in the ribs so they break. And if you don't think that's going to happen, yeah, I didn't either, but I accidentally broke somebody's ribs, accidentally on purpose. I wasn't trying to break his ribs, but they did break. And it was because I told him to put his elbow down, and you know, he's like, no, 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 I got this, dang! And he realized in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, shoot. And then the next time we sparred, he ended up with bruises on his forearm, but he sparred with something that was broken, and I never touched it, I never got it. And I knew that he had come back just shortly after me injuring him, though he hit it well. I knew I'd hit him. So the dude's a stud, but he kept his elbow down after that. And I learned that it was really easy to break somebody's freaking rib. Now, I'd had mine broken a few times, and certainly in full contact sparring, like that's one of the things that I learned in tournament on day one was if you take a back spin kick dead on the ribs, you're going to end up with separated or broken ribs like I did. So maybe not. Maybe not. So you're just trying to get those hands up. So you have that bang, bang, bang. And he's like, oh, this guy wants to spar. Oh, he wants to throw hands. You're trying to get that guy to show some aggression towards his defense. And then he's like, I'm coming back in, baby. So as you do that, you've got that 1, 1, 2. He's going to throw something. But your next 1, 2 really is just liver hunting. So the 1, 2 maybe carries that far. As you step to the 3, you can do this. So you have that, you know. You see, I don't even throw it. I just pull it short and step into that kick. And then if you're good, you can get in closer, but whatever. He's going to duck his head. He's not going to see the footwork. You're going to kick him in the ribs. And if he's attacking, you're not going to need to step up. It'll just happen. So you'll come in and be like, whoa. You know, I mean, it just all happens without your hands fluttering you around your head. And that was, you know, off of 1, 2, 3. You don't want to time those the same. You want to vary them once again when you're practicing. So, you know, you have that 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. As much as you can vary movements. 1, 1, 2. 1, 1, 1, 2. You know, that's not the toe. What was that time? Anyway. Sport specificity. Hear that? Look it up. Understand what it means. Understand what it is. Understand why fist, stick, and knife all begin to look the same. There's a reason why arts that are highly developed have techniques that are both long and short range. Just like boxing. So, weapons play follows your hands. Weapons flow follows a hierarchical structure of first weapon you walk in with and the last weapon that you either live with or die with. So, it gets to be your choice. Weapons flow. Because whang! You know, you want to be able to react suddenly if your weapon goes flying out of your hands, so that you can calmly pick it back up and go, man, was that a good move? Congratulations! Weapons flow will save your life. So knowing your distance, just like strikes with a knife, what we talked about earlier, keeping that slight hook, bend, whoops, whoops. Practice hitting things that move while you're moving. You won't hit them all the time. And you're not going to hit them all the time when you're sparring. If you think you are, you're silly. If you're close, and you push away with your head, so you get in and lean on you, and you push away, boom. See that technique right there? So you get into a guy and he's like, oh, he doesn't know what to do. See where my hand is? First thing I'm going to do, you're not necessarily going to be taught to do this in boxing. So I'm going to close the gap, but I'm going to answer the phone. And then I'm going to get real close to you so that I can either cross face you away, do something nasty to you, or in this case, all I'm going to do is take my head, go in with my hand push, and I'm going to push you right to there where then I can engage you for this. And I know it's going to happen because I know for a fact I can move you, even if you slip off like that. So you're going to move. It's a strong enough move. So you get in and you push and you hit. And again, just by maintaining that distance, timing, and correct technique, it makes that punch really solid. And that's when people go to sleep. So, spears are fun. So, they're not all spinning movements. A lot of spear movements, though the spinning movements are cool. So, you know, I was like, whoa, God, spinning movements, I like it. they're not all show, but it's not really what you're doing. So block, attack is what you're doing. So block, attack on your opponent's weapon arm, and down is what you're doing. So block, attack, slash. So you can see that 1, 2, 3. When you learn to do these type of movements, those are the movements that you're doing. So spears, they work together, always attacking that center line of both weapon, arm, and opponent through different angles. And the same angles apply in your hand fight. So, kind of neat. Oh, look. Now, when I practice that way, my old and achy joints, man, they do not always like it. But you don't have to like it, you just kind of have to do it. You know what I mean? So, for those of you who are practicing stick fighting arts, one of the, and I'm not going to do it now because it's so early in the morning, I don't think my neighborhood would respond well to people yelling. But one of the things you need to learn how to do is to attack until you lose. And those are all out strikes on something until you can no longer get that strength and energy out of your voice and therefore your weapon to make those strikes actually quality strikes. Okay? So it's super important to do that training because that's training to failure. You want to embrace that. Almost everything you do, train harder kind of, philosophy is sort of test the limits of your, not injury, of your failure mentally. Get deeper than your physical. Mentally, you're going to quit probably before you become injured because your body will send signals. Don't do this or you'll become injured. And if you're a warrior, you can't listen to those at all. You have to shut them off. So if you're on the soccer field and you roll your ankle, oh my God, I just rolled my ankle for the 278th time. Wang, this season. You can either stay on the field or you can turn around and go, Coach, I rolled my ankle. And if you decide to stay on the field and you don't shut that off, they're going to see that you suck and they're going to pull you off for some reason. So you got to be really good at hiding it. Are you hurt or are you injured, kids? Remember that? Anyway. All right. Timing, distance, speed, okay, all applies with weaponry. So when I'm practicing sports specificity, in order for me to train for the specific technique that I'm going to employ, I must exactly duplicate the movement. Is this exactly duplicating the movement of this? And the answer is no. But the technique of throwing this to the distance of relative to this. So now the external distance of your range, the long range, it becomes relative in that it's similar. But because of the dynamics of drag, there's more wrist used. So if you're going to attack, you're not only going to have drag going out, but as you try to pull it back. So you're going to have stress at the wrist. That's why these are used for wrist training, which feels like you might be having a flipping injury. Having an injury? Whatever. Correct my grammar, please. Now, let's play with timing. Now, when you're doing that kind of training, you're starting to, remember, you're looking for speed and stress, relaxation. And as you get good at this, you want to learn how to train to a point where you start to slow down and feel that stress start. Remember, you don't want to become injured. This is very different than strength training. This is conditioning, very different. So you have to know when to shut it off. Otherwise, it'll go too far. Especially with stuff like this. Same thing applies on this side. Like that. So. Man, I suck with my left. Practice now. Well, get your hands jacked up a little. Oh, big. All right. So, a lot of the exercises from the calisthenics world are awesome. Keep doing. Train harder. Test your mind. As you're getting up in the morning, figure out why you train. Only relative to you. Don't train for anyone else. Find your reason. Find your reason for training. Every day. Train hard and persevere is a thing that is real. It takes real work. So, and it's in whatever art that you want it to be in, essentially. As long as you do something and you seek a level of excellence that's driven by something that can be codified or something that is completely freestyle but has the same end result, man, you got something. It's that art is art thing. So, excuse me. Just gonna stretch it out here. So, it doesn't matter what art you seek in the martial arts. What makes anything that you do great, whether it's kicking, boxing, or anything else for that matter, is important for you to understand that it's not the techniques that are gonna make you great. It's the speed that these techniques are employed, but additionally, it's the timing that they're employed with, and then there's some other drivers. So those are your emotional drivers. There's a lot of talk on the internet these days about how emotional avoidance is bad, which I would agree with. But that's not the same as emotionally calm or intelligent. In war, in fighting, in combat, you should always remain emotionally calm and intelligent, even if you're channeling rage. And it's because you still want to make the correct decisions, because what your emotions you're channeling serve only as like an energy source. They're not the decision makers. Because then you'll make the wrong decisions if you're overconfident and you're going too fast. And anyway, we're talking theoretical. So in the martial arts world, we follow this emotional ID thing that then, if I find the right opening, when I move in, I immediately in that moment leverage something that feels like rage. So the rest of the time, I'm just looking for it. I don't care whether I hit you, I don't care what happens. But the minute I see that opening, from this fist to the bridge of that nose, because you've moved off to the side to try to duck out of this, that's the motion that I'm going to leverage that thing that I've done over and over again through emotional ID. I've gone back in time and I found that place. So yeah, that's what I need to drive this fist through that head. And that's what I use to drive it. BAM! And then I just back that on out of there, that emotional thing, and I set it back in its little spot where it belongs. Now, when you go to therapy years later, they'll say, man, you got to put that little kid away. Yeah, sure. But if you're a warrior, you need to become emotionally intelligent. You don't need to put the little kid away. You're going to be, in fact, required to walk around with things that most people are scared of. If you're a warrior, that's a wooden knife. People shouldn't be scared of this. Bad choice. But emotional calm is what comes from years and years and years of conditioning the body and the mind so that they harmonize in their search for what you're all probably looking for, which is eternal harmony. If people are seeking one God or another, I believe they're probably seeking some level of eternal harmony despite what they call it. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway. I hope that you're up in your garage exercising. If you're not, when you watch this, I hope you get up into your garage and exercise. If you can't get into your garage, clean out your garage and exercise. You can come here, maybe. We'll see. Depends on you. Hey, I think it's time for you to get out of my garage. See you tomorrow.